morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we got the Altar of Souls just came out with something new for Prism Jewels. I will be honest with you guys, I was not expecting this one to show up so soon, especially since we just recently got off of Prism Crystals, but it looks like they're going to be offsetting him in terms of scheduling moving forward. So we'll have to see if maybe we can expect something like this on a reoccurring basis. Now, they did decide to do a select summoning event for blessings based off of the Nyressen Union, I think it's what it's called. So basically, the bottom three champion pool selections, the bottom three factions, depending on how you want to look at it, are available for you to do. So I wanted to break down this list a little bit and kind of give you guys my 2 pennies on it and whether or not this is something you should go for, or, you know, kind of go from there. So my disclaimer, I'm actually going to work my way from early to late. Basically, when you're first starting off the game, blessings would be a bonus. They're not mandatory to make progression, but they are a nice cushion, a nice way to push yourself through and get like a lot of value from just not only the blessings and what they provide, but the stat bloats that come with them, you know, having the extra attack, the extra crit damage, the extra HP, the extra defense, or the accuracy could be very, very valuable, right? So taking a look at this pool, the thing that I would say for early game players is you may not have access to some of these champions. So in this particular pool, there is no rares. And the epic selection is pretty much one that has to do with a lot of champions that are very desirable. That could be pretty game-changing the moment you get them and acquire them on your account for the first time, depending on where you're at and how much you've acquired along the way. Now, the legendary sides are also going to be kind of interested. So, allow me to say this. I don't think that this type of particular event, unless you're a spender very early on, is something that I would be inclined to wanting to participate towards. Now, with that being said, as you progress from mid-game to late game, I think mid-game it kind of also holds the same value and the same weight in the sense that, like, you may not have access to some of these champions or if any at all. And that may not be like something I would be too inclined to wanting to participate in. You may have other focuses or other ways to benefit your account right now that may be a little bit more of an importance to you to get to a point where maybe these type of events have value. So maybe keep that in mind. As always, it's going to depend on what you pull and what you have. If you do have champions of this particular roster, then it may be up your alley. So allow me to break it down and kind of go through some of the ones that we kind of look at. I'm very surprised they do have some epics or some voids as mixed in along with all the rest of them. Very similar to the last event where we had like Siffy and a couple of them. So it was a good mixed bag that was based off of just the champion selection pool. So Acrizia, we'll do with mostly the legendaries, and I'll nitpick some of the epics along the way that you may be considering that may have value for you. Acrizia used to be the boss queen when it came to anything that had to do with boss damage. She was the enemy max HP. She still holds up pretty well in today's meta when it comes to PvE content. One of the reigning champions that still shines pretty high in Hydra content where it's nothing but boss fighting. You may see her laced in between some of the particular teams that you may see throughout the game. You may find her, you know, laced in there. I will say she kind of has fallen a little bit down because we have now gotten to a point where some accounts are able to do damage with non-capped champions. So like Acrizia, no matter what, her damage caps at a 10% depending on the boss you're fighting. And she can't do more damage on top of that. You know, any max HP has its limit. When you're able to start doing more damage past that limit, it starts kind of, the enemy max HP kind of falls down in terms of value. So accounts with high blessing values and all that can still technically produce values that provide higher numbers, and she becomes a little bit less desirable as a byproduct of that. Now, with that being said, she still has multi-hitters and effective damage output that can be utilized in a format like Hydra or other areas. So having her with a higher blessing doesn't necessarily stop or hinder or benefit that in any capacity outside of maybe the stat blow for like crit damage, which is a modifier that she would bounce her damage off of. But all the rest of them, in terms of bonuses and whatnot, may not have the most intrinsic value towards her. Now, you could use her blessing to benefit other champions in your team, and that may start bringing some value that could be pretty good for your comp overall, and you may produce better results, right? And I actually had this conversation with some of my clannies about, like, what would you put on someone like Acrizia who has that cap? And then you go down that rabbit hole, and there could be some side things that may help you out in the event that you're close to hitting like 100% of the boss's HP with the composition, but you may come up a little bit short. Maybe you're not hitting your overall 10%, having something like Soul Reap to kind of finish the boss off. Could be something you could consider, right? So something like that may not be too bad. The same thing with someone like Brogni, for example, who is kind of more of a utility-style champion that provides a lot of value reference. He kind of does like a little bit of a jack-of-all-trade type approach. His blessing would be based off of whatever you need in the game. So, like, in particular, when I was using my Brogni, he was actually more so use for like clan boss, and I still use him in my clan boss team to this day. Matter of fact, I'm missing a ring on him. But, you know, utilizing the block debuff, utilizing the remove debuff from all allies, so like a pseudo cleanse, also stripping a little bit, and then having the HP burn, redoubt, giving you some extra damages. It would also proc brimstone per each redoubt attempt. Each hit has a chance to do it, right? So I did use that and some, and then I also seen that there was comps before that actually had some value from him being able to provide value from like a shielding standpoint. He may even rise back in the meta coming with Wixwell in the near future. And comps that have to do with like using shields as a focal point of the damage output. So him being able to grow those shields, using something maybe like Crushing Rend to get more value out of it because it's based off of the damage output I believe you hit, could be something that you consider, right? High value and high desirability. I wouldn't say from my account I'm necessarily there. Those aren't really two big ones. I will say Molly, for example, though, she kind of shines in that support utility aspect where as a champion, she has the ability to provoke, so making her very valuable in Hydra. You could even use her in a pseudo control element for PvP. I have seen some comps like that, although I'd say that has kind of fallen down in value, and there's much more surmountable ways to be able to overcome comps like that she provides. Being able to revive target allies, you know, maybe some hiccups along the way come in your comps, whether that's in Hydra or a battle of attrition in some areas, making them harder to stay down because she has that bounce back mechanic with being able to revive and placing a block damage ability on them. Being able to increase your damage and do A1s with HP burns, what would you want to put on someone like her? Something that's utility oriented. So she doesn't have an aura, but maybe she can have that intimidating presence to provide something for those champions that do that. And the list kind of goes on and on and on. And I'll kind of skim over some big ones that I particularly care about, and I'll kind of give some rationalization as to why. But champions for me, when it comes to soul stones, I value the more competitive nature elements that would require more from your champions as to why I would want a blessing on them. So let's think about the two biggest areas that people compete in right now, and that's PvP, right? So you're looking for your nukers, your support champions to do the best that they can, and then you're looking for Clash, Hydra Clash, so champions that are highly valued in that element. And you saw how I was like nitpicking at some of those, and I only use the top three because they kind of fit each archetype: utility, support, and of course like your damage dealer, right? In this particular roster, the champions that I would consider to be high value off rip, if we're not talking about niche comps like the Wixwell comp or the Trunda comp, for example, champions that do well in Hydra. Acrizia. Boss, it's nothing but boss fight, so she has that 10% cap. If you don't have champions that can do more damage than that, then she would be an automatic plug-in because she would just do a lot for your team. So think about it. She's a void champion. She does a lot, right? Molly, Provoker, does very, very well. Gina, another enemy max HP hitter. He's probably the actual boss killer now in a lot of comps and dungeon teams and whatnot. He's basically your hyper farm champion. You'll see him laced everywhere, for lack of better words. Very high desirable to get some extra stats, at least like maybe, I believe it's like stat value number 3 on the blessing, and then number 4 on the blessing because you get defense and crit damage. So that's what he scales off of. So very good value there. Kyoku, not so much. I think, if anything, for a Ghost Second style team for PvP, and even then, that kind of approach has become a little bit more superseded. It's been power crept. There's better champions that do what she does. Yumiko. Now, Yumiko is a conundrum where this is where I would say the incentive kind of starts hitting for me, because I have a Yumiko, and I actually am on the cusp of getting her final star, I believe. And I am... There she is right there, so you can kind of see her a little bit better. I am enticed, but I will say this: for one blessing to pull a set of soul stones and the value that this brings, that could be something that I would have to rationalize. But I'm going to break down the pool, and then I'm going to talk about whether or not you should do it, and the values, and what's the drop rates, and we can kind of go from there, okay? So, Lady Kimmy. Really good as a ghost speed champion for PvP, so you can kind of use her there. She has really good base speed. Increased speed, decreased speed, has block buffs. All those values have a good place not only in PvP, but also in Hydra, where having increased speed, decreased speed is actually an underrated value that you can get value out of, right? So I would say this could be an actual nod that if you have a champion like Kimmy and you don't have her blessing, this could be a good pull to maybe consider dropping for her. Mind you, it's a lot more focused, so it's a lot more easier to pinpoint her and maybe even get some higher value out of it. Mishinaki, this is the one I would say absolutely yes. This is probably amongst the best damage-dealing utility nukers in the game when it comes to Hydra. His Hex is very good because not only is Hex a valuable asset in Hydra where you can start targeting the Mischief head, splash damage to other heads, but it also comes with like a strip on his A3. So if the event there's some kind of occurrence where the boss does take buffs from you and he's going to try to spread it, or if the boss puts buffs on themselves, think Wrath, for example, with increased attack, or when he pops, if you don't have block buff on him, he has that reflect damage, which could hurt your team. Those little caveats can be very, very dangerous. So him being able to strip that in addition to applying a very suitable debuff on the team for that competition or that composition is really, really good, right? Decrease defense and attack if there's a Hex already prior placed on his A2. AoE, really, really good. A1 has an HP burn on it. And then his passive, where if anyone is attacking someone that has Hex on the enemy team, he has a 50-50, I believe, % chance of joining in on the attack and hitting him with his base default ability. Let's double check that just to make sure I'm not off on the money there. It is a 50-50. So, believe it or not, he actually joins in a lot more than you would think, and he's very, very strong as a byproduct of that. Now, keep in mind, he's also very synergistic with someone like Lady Mikage. I know there's been some Oboro comps that have been coming out. He's also a great plug-and-play for someone like Mikage, because whenever she A1s, he's also going in with her. So, very, very valuable champion. Probably by far one of the most enjoyable ones I've actually really approached recently. And I would say that that's a high desirable one for me too as well. So, already 3 off the top of the head that kind of makes me inclined. Amic. Now, if we are going to throw some variables in play, there are some niche comps that he's a part of for Hydra purposes, which make that a little bit more. I think Wixwell, right? So that's something that may have some value down the road. I don't know necessarily if having a blessing on him is mandatory for that. I don't believe it is. I think it's just more so the core of his kit that makes him valuable. But the stat bloat and some extra amenities along the way to make him get to that stat values you need him to be for that comp. Not a bad nod, right? Now, in addition to that, though, there are some comps, and I'll just refer to my builds that I have at the moment. I don't have any keys available, so I'm going to have to show you this way, but my IT-15 team actually incorporates him, and he's amongst the fastest of the speed tunes that you can use to beat a comp fight like Iron Twins at stage 15, right? So he actually does require some stat values to be able to do what he does best, right? And being able to acquire the stat values you get from blessings could alleviate that. Value 1, he gets extra HP. Value 3, he gets defense. Value 4, I believe he also gets a little bit HP there too as well. And then, of course, maybe some speed if you want it at 6 or at 5 resistance and accuracy. Although I don't think that's a focal point for IT in particular. I do know he's also valuable in some compositions that could be plug and played. Very similar to how I use my my Paragon for Nullhorn. There's a very similar approach that he has, that he puts his unkillable buff on there with the taunt, and you play with that comp in mind. So hitting those stat values and hitting the certain reference points is like how we said in IT also still hold value for someone like Amic going into Shogun. So some very good applicable cases for him to be valuable. Now, Estrid on this particular roster, I feel like she is kind of in a precarious situation that you have her in there. During her event where you can get her blessing, they had an event, I think it was like a path event where you could farm to get her blessing. A lot of people did go for that, and she got a 5-star blessing, I believe, in addition to her resources. I don't think I went for it particularly myself because of my resources at the time, but if you did go for that, then she's already kind of at like a 4-star, 5-star blessing. So the likelihood of you being able to get that may be kind of an issue, right? Would she be worth having? So in speed race comps, I could see it being valuable. I think if you use her for like a speed racer for like PvP, I could see that. It like she has that increased speed, which gives her the extra turn, and maybe you can penalize the enemy at that point by doing decreased speed, and there's some value there, right? Hydra, increased speed, decreased speed, weaken is very valuable. So I've seen a lot of people start bringing her around, and she does comparable damage from what I've heard. So this could be a very good value for those that are trying to build up Hydra teams and build up something, and you're trying to add that extra lace of damage with Weaken, for example, if you're missing that in your comps, but you don't have enough room, and consolidation is the name of the game when it comes to Hydra and building up really effective comps. The more that a champion can do, the more plug and play they are into a comp, opening up some slots for you to maybe slot in another damage dealer, and that ultimately benefits your comp to do more damage, right? So Estrid is one of those champions that can give you increased speed, decreased speed, weaken, and then a little extra layer of damage, right? So very good plug, very comparable, maybe not directly from a damage standpoint, but comparable in the sense of being able to provide increased speed and decreased speed all in one champion. Very, very good. Elva, cleanser, healer, reviver, speed lead champion. This champion has a lot of value in all of those regards. From a PvP standpoint, she could be a solid support where having a high blessing could be very valuable. Also, from a Hydra standpoint, since we're talking from the two most competitive standpoints, she could be very valuable in being able to provide more in the aspect of maybe that intimidating presence that we were talking about, that you want to have at least one in a team, right? Or even cruelty for that matter. You know, you can maybe give some there. Although I think there might be better champions that could probably be better suited for it. It is a side caveat that you would plug and play based off of the needs of your account. So, in all essence, I would say that someone like her, if she is someone that's a staple in your team and you're using her quite often, she could be very, very valuable in terms of having a higher blessing for her. If we're talking PvP, having a tier 6 blessing could be the thing that allows you to go polymorph without compromising and having to build accuracy and all that. And she can still build her defensive and supportive stats, and you're net gaining and being a deterrent for the enemy team putting debuffs on your team, which means that you're less likely to be CC'd, and that means you're more likely to get your turn, right? So, very good value nod there. Pydrac, he also had a similar experience with Esther where they had like a designated event for him where you can get a high blessing for him. So if you did go for that blessing, this falls on deaf ears in terms of like the value of wanting to go for this particular altar summoning event for Prism Jewels just for him, right? Now, if you didn't go for it, Pydrac is a pretty good champion. Does he need anything in particular? I think he's very similar and comparable to some of the other champions on this list. In terms of like, you don't need to have it. It's a nice complementary aspect for him. He doesn't do AoE, so cruelty doesn't have that much. Intimidating presence could be very valuable. He has a very strong blessing too as well, with being able to be suitable for dungeon speed comps. Going very fast, maybe in Fire Knight, for example, he has like a 20-30% increase in dungeons. Let's take a look here. 25, so right there in the middle. I think I'm thinking of Zenogre, who has a 30% in dungeons. So might be a very valuable aspect of there if you're finding yourself trying to get to certain speed requirements, but you're just a little bit short. Maybe having that aura and maybe having intimidating presence on it could be very valuable. Now, all the epics, I'll just give some special nods. Geomancer's like a legendary and a epic skin. Still to this day, still holds up pretty well. You saw him in my IT team, and when I was showing you earlier, the Emic is in there. Ruella, I use her in my Sand Devil Speed team. She's my decreased defense and weakened champion. Also decreased speed. It's tuned in with that in mind. Creodin, for those that are looking to find a complementary damage dealer to G-Nut in Fire Knight. Very good. Hatatsu, increased defense and a heal. Gimbo, Void, Epic. That could be used as a pretty good nuker, especially since Empowerment's in play now for epics. A lot of value has increased now for epics, right? Myceliac. Priestorn, he is a champion that used to do solo builds for Dragon, you know, for speed farming, as well as IG in the early days in normal. Maybe with the empowerments and blessings being a special case, he may be able to be viable to be used as a solo champion again. Something to keep in mind. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about how this is broken down. So they have it for only epics and legendaries in the pool. There's a 72% chance for every summon you do that they're going to be an epic, and then 28. So if you pull a 10 pool of this, just as a hypothetical, you're likely to get majority of those to be epics, and then maybe a third to be, or 1/10, or maybe 3/10 to possibly be a legendary. Then within that pool, you have a chance of it being from 3 to 6 star. And the chances as you go up in terms of the star value are lower, right? And even harder as you go through like the legendary pool, as an example. So for me, in my circumstance, right, what am I looking for? I'm looking for Mishinaki 6 star, so I can start going a higher, more aggressive blessing for him. That would net him more damage. G-Nut would be a quality of life. It's not mandatory, but it doesn't hurt to have extra stat bloat, so like at least 4 would be what I would look for my damage dealers. And then depending on the support, maybe anywhere between 3 to 6. You know, the first 3 would be for the HP and the defense, and then maybe at tier 6 for the speed, maybe 5 for the accuracy resistance for the utility champions you're using. So those would be the areas I'm looking for a breakdown. So for me on my account, what do I care about? Mishinaki is probably the number 1 here that I think I would be most inclined towards, because I'm pretty Hydra focused right now. Yumiko would also help that in that aspect too, but hers would be more tuned towards PvP. So I'm already 1 away from her, so I kind of feel like pulling just for her would just be very, very difficult to justify, right? Now, Emic, I have no blessings on. Elva, I think I am sitting on a 3 star for her. So once I finish building her up, as a matter of fact, I have her ready. I think I'm going to save this for a mission for Marius, but I do have her. So if anything, I'm going for like a 4, 5, or 6. So the pool chance of rating of dropping that is like 30% if I hit a legendary first off. So out of your 10 pool, you have a likely chance, if I'm rounding this up, you know, 3 out of those to be a potential legendary, and then the likelihood of her being her is 1 to 4, 8, 12, 1 out of 12, right? And then on top of that, you have it being a 13 or a 7% chance of being able to hit her, and it's very, very low, so it's very, very hard to pinpoint that. Now, from the late game to end game players, you got to min-max everything to be able to be the most competitive, and that's where you're at this point in the game, right? So if Mishinaki is your desired champion, Yumiko is your desired champion, Emek is your desired champion, you got to push those stats and you got to push those limits, right? So this could be really good for those that are in-game, late-game players that are looking to min-max the most effective resources they can get on their hands there, and this is a great way to do it. Blessings have provided now so much to a point where they become a mandatory staple in being able to acquire. And I'm just going to show you, for example, my Mishinaki, who I have at 4-star, what would be the game-changing element that getting a 5-star or 6-star would represent. Let's take a look. So as of right now, I'm running a 12 speed on my defense percent boots. They're savage. I'm building them for damage. To show you his total stats, I'm roughly around 231. With Hydra bonuses, I'm sitting pretty comfy at 250, right? He's almost at 7k defense and 311 percent crit damage, right? Getting a blessing at tier 6 would open up getting more accuracy. What could that do for me? I could technically consider maybe stat valuing a little bit more higher resources in the aspect of a rebuild. Maybe I incorporate a Savage Shield set that still gives me the speed and crit rate that I'm looking for in defense, but maybe that HP percent could turn into an accuracy, and then I could drop my banner altogether and go a defense banner. Let's take a look and see if I have any, for example, right? So I have one that's at a tier 6. It's 398. That would be the thing that would take my damage stat from him, which he based off of. He's a defensive nuker, so defense being his big value. That would be the thing that would put me over 7k at a base value, which means that when you add the element of Hydra bonuses, I'm now sitting comfortably over, 7.3, maybe even, 7.2-ish roughly. So I'm getting closer to higher stat values, which means that his per hit damage is going to be a lot more substantial, right? That's what a 5-star blessing would do. A 6-star blessing could be the difference between me going from 12 speed here to maybe dropping this or dusting this and going defense percent, netting me 20% more defense on top of that. And that is very substantial. I can maybe make up for, at a tier 6, I get 15 stats. I don't even need to add a glyph to my speed, and I would still be actually netting more. So take the 12 away, add the 15, I'm up 3. And then what I net in the difference is the defense percent, right? So just to show you guys a perspective about how the value of a blessing can change the terrain of how your builds look, this is a great indicator, right? And what that means is that, like my Mishinaki, and I'll show you guys something that I recently PB'd on with my team. My Mishinaki could be the difference maker of being 202 million damage in a Nightmare run to maybe 230, 240, 250, and that puts me one step closer to hitting that 1 bill in Nightmare, and that's kind of something that I think when you're considering your builds and how you optimize with those extra stat values in mind, that could be the game changer to take you one step closer to the next notch that you're looking for, And here's another thing too, what I'm going to talk about too. Crushing Rin is a very valuable asset to use for especially like Hydra champions or Hydra bosses or bosses where defense is a high value. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this up for you guys real quick. I should have had this pre-prepped for y'all, but I'm going to pull this up really fast so you guys can kind of see it. If we're talking about Mishinaki, for example, in Hydra as a focal point, right now I think we're in rotation 2. It's about to change over to 3. But in Nightmare, anything that I would say that justifies like closer to like 4K or higher would be very, very good. Maybe even like 3K, 3.5-ish. It could be a good argument where ignore percent has very, very good value, right? Which is what Crushing Ren is based off of. For every X amount of levels, you net 1 extra percent of ignore percent defense, right? So at the highest, it's 10. For every 10 levels, you get that extra ignore percent, right? And then, of course, at the lowest, it's every 50 levels. So if you're looking at the value, you got the levels. You could take the levels at 310, divide that by whatever your percentage or your levels are, and then that's how much you would be able to get per percent. You know what I mean? Of those, every iteration of those would be that extra 1% that you would get on top of that. But then on top of that too, at 5 and 6, you start getting the first 2 hits, and then it's every hit. So being able to ignore percent for that first round is really, really good because you get like a big hit but then it falls off. Well, at stage 6, it doesn't fall off. So every hit is going to get that ignore percent. And it's really, really good. And that's how you scale up more damage, right? So that is the difference between like 5 and below compared to 6 as a blessing. So it's very, very strong. I think you guys kind of get it. You guys kind of get it, right? So I definitely could see a lot of value in some areas where like getting a tier 6 could be valuable. But the thing is, I think you would have to set your expectations real low in terms of like maybe going for it, unless you plan on going extremely in the spending mode of it. And to show you guys here, $99 is basically $1,100. This is USD, obviously. $1,100 for pools, and that could equate to almost basically a 10 pool right there, right off rip, because it's 60. So if we do the math here, 1,100 divided by 60 is about 1.8ish. So you got a good bit, right? Hold on, let me do that right. 1,100 divided by 60 is 18. So you got about 18ish. So I missed the zero on my thing, math. But the thing is that like you pretty much get a 110 pull for about $100, and that's not easy for everybody to accomplish, right? So I think this particular altar event for this summoning event for Prism Jewels is a little bit of a miss depending on what your focus is. So for those that are in the PvP centric mindset, if your Hydra teams are already optimized and you have all the Prism, all the blessings for the key champions you're looking for, some key ones that I mentioned, like Mishinaki, for example, then this isn't really a high value for you. On the PvE side, I would say that outside of those key champions, it's still kind of a miss, right? Because if you don't have the champions already, less desirable. If you already have high blessings on them, it's less desirable. And then, do you need it? That is the real question that you have to ask yourself. And I would say that, like, depending on the compositions that you're building, there are 1 or 2 comps that I could see where, like, having Gina at a high blessing for Soul Reap to cover maybe any percentage of the boss's HP, you compensate for that. I could see maybe that being a value. Having the Crushing Ren from a competitive standpoint, I could see the value. But like a lot of these champions, you don't necessarily need to have high blessings to net gain the amount of output you need. Would it be game changing? Absolutely. But be realistic with your expectations. And as always, take a look and see what your chance rates are. This is the best thing that I can do to rationalize it. I can't make the decision for you because each account's different. But for myself, I think that like outside of some key champions that I would love to be able to experience some blessings, some higher blessing value for, overall, I am less inclined to. So like, out of all this list, the 12 of legendaries that we're looking at, and I'm only looking at legendaries for the sake of this conversation, Mishinaki and Yumi are the big ones. Bonus would be like Gina, for example, but it's not mandatory. Everything I need to do with him right now, I'm already able to do with my builds, and my Great Halls and all my stuff are developed enough to a point to get the value I'm looking for. So outside of those 2 of 12, it's not really that high. Now, on the Epic side, I also don't feel like it's that mandatory for me right now at the moment. Some of the champions that I would love to do some hypothetical testing with, maybe do some videos, especially with Doom Tower Rotation number 3 coming into play as of today, question mark? We may have some builds come out, and we'll test the waters with some champions that could have limitations and only go up to a certain point. Maybe they might be able to go all the way. Think of Burengiri, for example, which I can't show you that way. How about I do it this way? Someone who's already got like a high blessing, maybe take him up to 6-star, and now that he's awakened, a +3. Maybe we could do something with it. We'll have to see. Anyways, you guys let me know. Are you guys planning on pulling for this Prism Jewel event? I think it's a hard maybe for me, and I'm leaning more towards no. But I think at the end of the day, this is a very interesting dynamic by which Plarium is introducing new champions in. Is it healthy for the game? I think that as a catch-up mechanic for those that don't have high blessings and they're looking to get into that realm of being able to have high blessings, is a great catch-up mechanic. For those that are already spinners and they have like an advantage with blessings, this is only even more enticing for them to maybe pinpoint some particular champions that they were looking to expand upon. This definitely exists in that category. But for those that can't spin, well, I look at it this way. They have introduced events that you can participate in and get some value in. So if you have your Sand Devil team up and running, maybe you can get one summon, maybe get lucky. You can take those chances wherever you can reasonably without having to spend too much, and you can get what you're looking for maybe as a bonus, right? And there's no foul, no loss. You weren't going to be spending on soul stones anyways if you're free to play, right? So take your advantage where you can get them. It's a small chance to get something that you're looking for, and if you do so happen to spend, then you may be a little more lucky on that regard, right? But with that being said, I do want to know, is this event a hit or a miss for you guys? I think the first one was definitely a hit because it gave me some champions I really wanted, like Mishinaki. This second go around, I think it could be a little bit more enticing, but I do like the idea that they are doing it based off of like factions, and they have like a particular focus of champions that they are basing it off of. So when they hit that particular faction or that particular alliance that you're probably looking to expand upon, like for example, the Corrupted has high value for me, right? Because there's a lot of key champions in some of these factions I would like, or maybe even the Talarian League, if you're looking at it that way, could be something something to consider if you're ever interested and they do some pinpoint upgrades on the road. So I think this is going to be something to expect down the road. So be on the lookout, right? Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you guys are going to be planning on doing with this event. Is it a hit or miss for you? And always remember, stay ascended.